This is probably the biggest car deal of my entire life. I cannot see how it would get better than this. I've been working this deal for about 8 months now. It's been a long process. I've lost a lot of sleep over this, but the time has come to finally unearth these cars that have been sitting untouched for the last 35, maybe even 40 years. So quick backstory, the guy that owned these cars passed away and he had family out of town. It sounds like, maybe family was estranged. He was estranged. And it took some time to get this deal done because everything had to go through the court system and family members were fighting over stuff. But we finally got it done. It was a little bit of a messy situation. I was losing all kinds of sleep over getting this deal done over the last 8 months. And I'm proud to say we finally made it happen. And we were able to unearth these cars. And we're going to be getting them back on the road. So that's the quick story of what happened. There was a lot more that I might share in upcoming videos, but you guys got the gist of it. I don't want to bore you too long. I want to get into the footage of us actually unearthing these cars. Before we do that though, the moment I first saw these cars, it was unexpected. So I got a call from a lawyer. And in my line of work, I go into a lot of different homes. We sell, the personal property and stuff like that inside. And then they mentioned how there was some cars and, being a car guy, I wanted to take a look at those. And then stepping out into the garage, it was like a moment, what I imagined heaven to be like. My heaven, that's what I wanted to look like. It was incredible. I could not believe what I was seeing because stuff like this doesn't happen. You don't see this every day, and you guys are about to see why. Now, as you can see, this was a total hoarder situation where these cars have been buried in for a very long time. So in order to get the deal done, I had to see what type of condition these cars were in and then negotiate from there. So we put a lot of work into this just to even get to the table to negotiate. After we negotiated, it was now time to put more effort in and finally get these cars out of this garage. Both cars were up on jack stands and pushed up against the wall. I'm not even sure how this guy squeezed these cars in here like he did and then piled everything else around it. So luckily we were able to borrow some automotive skates from one of my buddies, and that made this job a whole lot easier. And of course, what we're looking at here, I can't believe it took me this long to mention it. We are looking at a 1970 Dodge Challenger and a 1981 Corvette. Now this clip right here is pretty much my first glance at the cars when I was finally able to get the hood on the Challenger open, and I wasn't too surprised that it wasn't a Hemi, but I gotta say I was a little bit disappointed. We can all dream, right? The dream couldn't keep going. And then here we go again. We first pulled out the Dodge Challenger and you can see the layer of dust covering this thing. And I gotta say, the smell inside this car wasn't too appealing. It definitely took some work and we're gonna be cleaning this car up even further, of course. But surprisingly, it rolled. It wasn't seized up. I was really surprised at that because usually once these cars sit this long, they seize up and they're really hard to remove. We are really confident that these things haven't seen the light of day in many, many years. And the family was just kind of getting upset with other people who were trying to buy these cars. I'm not kidding you when I say a neighbor came over to talk with the family about buying both of these cars and only offered $1,000 a piece. So I think that really helped my side of the deal when it came to negotiate. Finally, it was now time to remove the Corvette, and this one proved to be a little bit more difficult. And this was all taking place in a single day, which was a ton of work and a lot of hours to get this done. The lady we were buying these from was nice enough to offer for us to leave these cars to come back another day. But of course, I was super nervous and didn't want to do that just in case she had a change of heart or something like that. So I really wanted to push to get this done. And we kind of worked up right until the wire. But we were finally able to get this removed. And the tires aired up a little bit, but they weren't the best. But it was good enough to, at least attempt to get them to roll onto the back of the rollback. But this thing was seized. This is typical of any car that sits. Usually the brakes seize up. But you can kind of see in this video, it frees up. The guy was kind of being hard with the winch, but it finally broke loose and he was able to drag it up onto the rollback. Now, obviously, the work doesn't end here. Now we have to put the work in and actually get these cars running and driving down the road. That way they don't sit in a garage for the next 40 years. That's something that was really important to the daughter we were purchasing these from. She wanted to make sure that these weren't going to just sit in a private collection and be underappreciated. She wanted to make sure that these got back onto the road and that other people could enjoy them, which I could definitely respect. And I thought that was really cool that she wanted to honor that. So as we go through that process, I'll upload some more videos and I'll make them more entertaining. This is the best I could do with the footage that I got from that day. There was just so much going on, but I wanted to capture that moment because you don't find stuff like this every day. And like I said, it probably won't ever happen again, at least to me. I hope it does, but I highly doubt it. So that's all the footage I have from that day. I wish I was able to film more in depth, but as you can see, that was a handful trying to get this deal done. And I told you in the beginning of this video, there was even more inner workings to this that I'll probably share in upcoming update videos. Also, if you can't tell, I'm battling a little bit of a cold right now, so I do apologize. I promise I typically don't sound like this, so please ignore that side of things, but I will be posting some more update videos in the future. Now, I can tell that this guy that owned these cars really cared for them, even though he couldn't necessarily drive them or he didn't drive them, you know. You could tell there was some things that were done to the cars over the years that told me that he had aspirations for maybe one day getting these back on the road himself. And I think putting them up on jack stands and making sure that they didn't rot away was very important to him. And ultimately, I think that's probably the only reason these cars were saved. A lot of times, especially where we live, if you just kind of put cars into dry storage, they kind of rust from the bottom up. Luckily, this garage seemed to not have a moisture problem. So I think that really helped these cars be in the condition that they are. They're definitely not perfect, and we'll get into that in upcoming videos, but they are far from unsavable. These are very obtainable cars to get back on the road, and that's exactly why I wanted to get these cars. One, awesome cars, iconic cars, but also I don't have a whole lot of experience. I don't work on cars for a living. At best, I usually jump on here, get on YouTube to figure out my issues for cars, but it's a fun learning process, and you know what? I enjoy it. So we're going to see what we can do with these cars, probably take them to some shows, tell their story, and make sure that they don't sit in a garage for the next 40 years.